Hello, everybody. Welcome to Know Your Money. I'm Bronwyn Wayner.
And I'm Craig Finch, and we are from Growth Financial Planning. We hope you enjoy our podcast.
Hello, viewers. So today we have a question from one of our listeners, and he has asked us, what is the best way to invest offshore if you have little faith in the rand? Craig, what is your opinion on the question, first of all, and then...
That's a great question, Bron and Warren. And this question isn't a new one. It doesn't just spring in the 2025 year. This goes back, I don't know, since 1960 probably. But in those days, when we moved currency from pound to rand, the rand was actually stronger than the dollar.
Sure.
So my dad bought a car in from Germany, and he paid 80 cents to the dollar. So the rand was much stronger than the dollar then. And of course, now it's gone right the way what we face today in 18 rand scenario. So you're always going to have this discussion of but if you're living in South Africa, you have to have most of your assets in South Africa. And then you go and say, well, I own property here. So that's a big asset for most of us. Mm-hmm. And then you say, well, if I don't think that the rand is going to do well going forward and it's going to be a disaster in the next 20, 30 years, my first question is, why do you own property here? Because that's going to be the hardest thing to sell if you don't have confidence. Mm. So it's a double-edged sword a little bit. It's a bit of political confidence and then confidence in the economy. And I say this discussion has been going on for decades. Mm. And I don't know, it always seems to bounce back. South Africa, for me, is a very lucky country. I mean, Jan Smuts said, South Africa, I'll try and remember his exact words. He said, it's a peculiar kind of place where things aren't as bad as they are, but not as good as they can be. Mm. So Jan Smuts said that in the 1940s. So now we're in the 2025 and we all still feel the same way. But having said that, if you were living anywhere in the world, you would have your investments will not only be in America or in the UK or Australia, you would diversify your investments elsewhere. So you would have offshore money. If in Australia, you would have money in Europe and America and vice versa. So we've done these discussions. We had many discussions, fund us, guide us around this, and about 40% of our clients' money should be offshore. If you're super wealthy, you can have more offshore, but you've got to be careful of the currency fluctuations. So if you have a living annuity, which is a pension that provides you a monthly income, and you have the options of where to invest the money, if you had all that money offshore and the rand went from 19 to 15, you'd have a capital loss overnight, and that can happen in South Africa. Mm. Then suddenly your pension is dropped dramatically just on the currency. So it's best to diversify that and have about 40% invested internationally.
So would you have those investments held in foreign currency or in assets like gold? Or?
Well, there's two ways you can do it. You can have an asset swap, what they call it.
Okay.
So let's say you're living annuity, that pension that you're earning, and you choose the percentage between 2.5% and 17.5%, that kind of pension. Then you could say, then it's an asset swap that says that the investment companies invest in your money offshore, but it's paid back in rands. It's paid back here. It's not hasn't physically left the country. The other way is to physically leave the country.
That first one, sorry to bother, but that first one, does that also then, it's dependent upon the exchange rate?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then the other one is that every South African taxpayer is allowed 1 million rand a year discretionary allowance. In other words, you're allowed to send 1 million rand across to hard currency offshore.
Yeah.
But it does include your purchases online. So if you're buying stuff online or you're traveling, that 1 million rand discretionary allowance is included in that. And
your travel as well, so hotels, flights. Yeah. Unless if you're buying the flights from a South African provider like SAA, does that count as part of it?
No, so whatever you've spent in foreign currency.
In foreign currency, so if you're buying flights from a foreign,
then you're allowed an additional 10 million through SARS.
But so you have to apply for that?
You have to apply for it, get tax clearance for that. SARS have got to approve it. The first million you don't need SARS approval because SARS have given the banks the life companies as well, and the investment houses, the license to deal with
For the average
the first
man,
million.
Craig, that's a lot of money. I
No,
mean, in a year.
exactly.
So it's not exactly
Yeah,
like it's a hindrance to how much you can put across.
No.
You have to be wealthy to want to put more than that
Yeah.
across every year.
But we have products that allow
Yeah.
you to put smaller amounts offshore,
Yeah.
physically leave South Africa.
Yeah.
50,000 Rand, for example, can go and be invested in a portfolio that's diversified across the globe, that could be expressed in pounds or in dollars. So physically, where's my money? My money's physically out of South Africa. So if I'm in the UK, I just tell that provider to pay that money into my British bank account. So there are physical ways of getting money outside of South Africa quite legally and part of your financial plan. It's got to be part of the plan, as Bronwyn and I know that so well.
Yeah. I definitely think it does need to be a part of the plan. And I think if you don't have faith in South Africa and you want to retire here, it doesn't mean that you should invest all your money offshore, because that's not going to help. Even if you are trying to plan to immigrate, you've got to, again, like Craig said, don't worry about where you're putting your money first. Sell your property while you can, while it is good. Then take that money and put it away. So our advice to anybody that is staying in South Africa is every single investment that we show our clients, bar like money market money, will have some form of offshore in the model portfolio. So just because it's not in hard currency offshore, you are still getting that return from the offshore market without that currency fluctuation, which I think is good. For me, you've got to have all your building blocks first, and then that final one is that offshore, really, really hard currency investing to help you when you travel, if ever you do want to move overseas, and also just looking at your overall retirement plan, because you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. And South Africa is a small pinprick versus the rest of the world that you can invest in. So, you know.
We're less than 0.5% of the world's.
What GDP?
Yeah, exactly. So it's important to diversify. But maybe your children one day would want to go to varsity in another country, and you've got currency overseas that you could use for that. So, so the question is difficult, and it's. But we believe you diversify. You have to have some offshore money, but you can't say I have all my money offshore, because if the rand goes from 18 to 15, and we've had this fluctuations, and we can't say it won't happen.
The rand is very volatile.
Very, but it's very tradable. So that's another very good positive aspect of South Africa, that we have a currency that is trusted by the world. You know, it's a trusted currency. You can put your money here and you can get your money out. Some third world countries aren't so trusted, and we are trusted.
I looked into that recently, and I don't think in the history of the Reserve Bank they've ever defaulted.
No, that's amazing.
Which, I mean, for an African country is pretty impressive.
No, exactly. So that's what I say. So there's massive positive aspects of that. So it's important, once again, to look at your financial plan, sit with your financial planner, see how much money you've got offshore, see when you send money directly offshore. And I think it's not a fast, if you're not, as Bronwyn said, if you're not keen to be here, then don't be here. If you're here, then you've got to be part of the economy and add positively to the economy.
And I think it's like what we say, you know, every rand needs to have a plan. So don't just put money offshore because you're scared of South Africa. Have the plan of why you're
because your
putting it.
mates are telling you to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my word, that's the worst reason.
It is. I mean, how often do you guys get that? Well, my friend just said we should do this.
Yes.
No,
you know, or the news said, or this article said. Yes, but what is your plan? Where's your future? What are you doing? What are you planning for?
Filter the noise, I promise you. The noise has been here forever.
Speaking of which, what was it? The last round of podcasts we did, we talked about going through the ups and downs of the markets. And obviously, since the tariff war started, quite the down, hey?
Yeah. What, the market went down?
Yes.
But it's recovered, it's bounded back to the highest levels again.
Is it at the highest
Completely,
levels?
yeah. I think it's the highest levels.
Okay,
Ever.
but that's what I found interesting is obviously people will say it's chaos, 10% loss over whatever it was a week.
Because the press love it, don't they? Love to go, it's 10% down. They don't say it's got 30% up when it goes up like that in a 15-month period.
Yeah.
They don't like to say that. I promise you, don't filter the noise.
It's also a lot of opportunity when it goes down like
Oh,
that.
my word. Sure. Yeah, great.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good
Have
day.
a great day.
Yeah, cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, would like to subscribe, please visit our website, www.growthfp.co.za. The information we have provided in this podcast is our personal opinion. For more detailed information, please discuss your financial situation with a financial planner.